I think that Ryan has laid the predicate for eventual surrender on this. I think that's the case. And I think that Trump is benefiting from extreme polarization in America. So a lot of people that thought that they were never Trump are very much never Hillary Clinton in the party. And they're making a short-term appeal on the Supreme Court. That all makes sense. But there's a long-term problem with having Trump as your nominee. I mean, Republicans have problems with immigrants, and he is proposing to get rid of 11 million people. They've got problem with women, and you look at the New York Times front page story, you know, this is a whole second front in the war on women that he represents. And so, I think that there's a short-term calculation, but then huge long-term risks for the Republican Party to confirm some of its worst, most destructive stereotypes. And that could take decades to get beyond.
Which is what you see Paul Ryan struggling with, I think, because in the short term, you can't imagine the Republican Speaker of the House is not going to endorse the Republican candidate for president. I don't think that's a realistic scenario. But you see him struggling with trying to see if maybe he can pull Trump back a little bit, maybe on some of his rhetoric, or do something
but he
moderate
didn't
him
get
in some way.
anything in return that I could tell.
Right.
There
Well,
was
not
nothing.
Paul Ryan
There was no
didn't
trade.
And there's no template for getting anything from Trump, right? Nobody who's opposed Trump in the past has gotten anything from Trump. But Paul Ryan is 46 years old. He's going to be around when Donald Trump is gone. And I think he's trying to figure out, what can I do that protects the Republican Party that I want to represent? Because I don't think Donald Trump is now a wing of the Republican Party. Donald Trump is the face of the Republican Party this year. Donald Trump defines the GOP at least until November.
So I think not rejecting Donald Trump kind of sets up this future Paul Ryan for kind of the same kind of failure. Because part of the problem, part of the reason Donald Trump could even win in the Republican primary is that the countervailing forces that could have existed, a large share of Latino Republicans or a large share of African American Republicans, just don't exist. You mentioned polarization, Michael. I think there's as much racial polarization in American politics as anything else that's produced Trump. And Trump himself is going to kind of reinforce that racial polarization. You know, after '64, Goldwater essentially helped make African Americans a permanent Democratic voting group. Trump can do the same for Latinos, right? And so 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you could have an entirely new generation of Hispanic voters who are still voting for Democrats because of Trump.
Michael, you've seen a president up close, what they look like, having worked for one. I was interested in Congressman King saying, well, if Donald Trump changes some positions on North Korea, on some other specific areas, he would feel more confident. Is that really all that this is about, is just getting the right positions on these issues?
I think politicians are used to dealing with splitting differences on issues. They're used to the best of, two bad alternatives. But the question is here whether the Republican candidate for president is fit to be president, whether he has pursued a division and nativism at the center of American politics that could really change our public life in destructive ways, fundamental and destructive ways. And under those circumstances, you're not talking about this issue or that issue. You're talking about fitness. You're talking about, can this man represent America in the world? Can he represent all our citizens in this process? And those are open questions right now, given the way that he has gotten to this point.
Trump is, I use this word intentionally, he's conjuring sort of the worst kind of nativism. He's conjuring bigotry for the sake of trying to win an election. Once you open that box in any kind of society, but especially American society, where we have these deep-seated racial divisions that have long had implications for our politics, once you kind of open that box, it doesn't close again. And I think because of that, because Trump is bringing to the fore for the first time in decades, in an explicit way at least, some of the ugliest impulses in American life, I don't think it's just a matter of, oh, well, Hillary Clinton's worse. I mean, sure, she's a liberal and you don't like her, but she's not encouraging violence at political events. Right.